This is the Decalogue stone with the 10 Commandments written on it on all sides of it. And this is a stone box that the Decalogue was found in.
Okay.
So when it was found, it was enclosed in this box and you couldn't even see the stone inside. The box is carved out inside exactly to fit the Decalogue stone.
Well, who's that guy?
Well, this figure here on the front that's wearing a robe and a turban and holding either tablets or a breastplate, and over his head in these Hebrew letters it says Moshe or Moses.
Oh.
So must be Moses.
Okay, that's Moses, all right.
Who delivered the 10 Commandments.
10 Commandments, okay, well. It seems to pass the scrutiny of the skeptics as far as the Hebrew text in the language, so now I'd like to try to add some evidence to this whole discussion.
This thing is polished after it was carved.
It's scratched like I would expect. Boy, it fits snug.
So the box in itself took an awful lot of work. I mean, if it was really a forgery, you wouldn't go to all that much trouble to make a box for it. So I think that speaks to its authenticity, that someone really this was very important to someone.
This is a lot of work, and it's polished. It's got the detailing of the grooves. It wasn't made, as far as I can tell, from modern machinery. Geologically, I don't see any problems here that would make these things obvious hoaxes. So the skeptics have rejected this.
Well, that's been a factor, but Hebrew is an odd thing to find here.
The fact that it's odd doesn't mean that it's not genuine. What it boils down to is really the problem with these artifacts is that the academics don't like them because they don't fit the paradigm. And unfortunately for them, you can't dismiss things simply because you don't like them.
Right.
And so the evidence to me seems clear. There's no reason not to accept these as genuine, legitimate artifacts.
And this morning, guys, we saw an incredible story on Breaking Israel News, and that is that they have discovered the oldest 10 Commandments written in Paleo Hebrew on a stone, a huge, I think it's an 80-ton stone, if I'm not mistaken, on the size of that, found in New Mexico, of all places. Now, Paleo Hebrew, guys, has been out of use for some maybe 500 years before the modern era, the coming of Christ. And so for a Paleo stone, a stone to be found with Paleo, the 10 Commandments of the Paleo Hebrew to be found inside of New Mexico lets us know that there is a lot of truth that, yes, indeed, there is a relationship between the Native Americans and the House of Israel in exile.
Somewhere along the line here, he realizes, oh shoot, I forgot a commandment. I just went from delivery from Egypt and the house of bondages, and or slaves or whatever, servants, the house of servants, and I started right into not making yourself a idol. You know, I started right into that, and then he realizes somewhere along the line. At what point? Like he looks like he continued to write, not to take up, not to uphold. Et down here, that's missing. The aleph is gone. The ta is there. Et Shem, Yahweh, the name of the Lord.
Eliminate the Indians entire, brothers.
Eliminate? You mean slaughter?
They are God's outlaws. Remnants of the lost tribes of Israel. They knew God and they rejected him, and he put a curse upon them and darkened their faces and turned all men against them. And gentlemen, as Christians, it is our duty to hunt them down and slay them. Read your Bible. I trust you have one.
This is Genesis 49:19. Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. Kahala Yahweh Bashem Yashayah, Bashem Rukakodash, which are the true Hebrew names of the Most High Father, Yahweh, which is Hebrew for He is, and His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, which is Hebrew for He is salvation, He delivers. Double honors my teachers, the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and mercy to the elect who the house of David reborn again in this generation. And Shalom to the one-third Yashayah, who today are known as the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, who before losing our true heritage, we were known as, and still are, the true Hebrew Israelites of the Holy Bible. In today's lesson, we're going to talk about the tribe of Gad and how today the tribe of Gad are known as the Native American Indians. Now, the videos we just watched was a collection of some of the more striking testimonies that prove that the Native American Indians are in fact of the tribe of Israel. Now, that being said, through prophecies, which when you go into the Bible explains how you could use the prophecies that are given in the Bible to identify the tribes at the end of the age, the end of our world, right? The time that we're living in now. And what does that mean? Well, you see, there was two major prophecies given to the children of Israel. The first major prophecies for each individual tribes was given from our forefather Jacob. Towards the end of his life, he gathered together his sons and his grandsons, and he basically blessed them all, and he also gave them a prophecy. And the prophecy which Gad received, Gad being again one of the 12 sons of Jacob, and when you get into Gad, he comes from Jacob's wife Zilpah, and Zilpah was Leah's servant, and from Zilpah she gave Jacob Gad and Asher. Now, that being said, our forefather Jacob's, or Israel's prophecy for Gad, is that what I just read in Genesis, that a troop shall overcome him, but that he shall overcome at the last. Now, what does that mean? Well, when you get into the fate of all the tribes, you find out that we were all taken down and destroyed, right? It was all done in a similar manner, because you see, the reason why the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, we all basically went through the same thing, where basically a nation would come from the other side of the earth, come and introduce themselves to us, and basically overtake us and conquer us, eventually put us into captivity, and eventually make us into slaves. That happened to these three groups, and the reason is because these three groups, the Negro, Latinos, and Native Americans, are in fact the Hebrew Israelites, which have been cursed because we failed to follow the contract we made with the Lord back when he took us out of Egypt. And because of that, the Lord brought this nation upon us. He brought this curse upon us, which specifically would bring forward our downfall. This can be found in Deuteronomy 28 and 49. Yahweh shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the ends of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. And he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle and the fruit of thy land, until thou be destroyed, which also shall not leave thee either corn, wine, or oil, or the increase of thy kin, or flocks of thy sheep, until he has destroyed thee. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates, until thy high and fenced walls come down, wherein thou trustest throughout all thy land. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout all thy land, which Yahweh, B'Hashem Yashayah, thy power, hath given thee. And that's ultimately what took place. You see, the Native American Indians all had been taken down, right? Through the trusting in their enemies and having their treaties broken. Eventually, the Native American Indians, at first, when they met these Edomites who had come to the Americas, they had tried to make friends with them. They, in fact, helped them right? We all hear about the story of Thanksgiving, how the Indians showed the pilgrims how to survive, how to sow over here in North America. And what happened? Well, eventually Esau's greed took over, and his incestuous appetite for land and power took hold, and eventually he took the land and ultimately the people of the Native American Indians, which again are the tribe of Gad. Here are some images that are saved that depict what happened. Right here on the left side, you see basically what looked like bounty hunters, or let's just call them slavers, but they're basically abducting Native American men. And what they did at this case, a lot of times they would take them and they would ship them back to Europe to be a spectacle, right? There's many accounts how Native American Indians would be taken back to Europe as a spectacle, and a lot of times they were freed, but they kind of just either would die off because they weren't acclimated to the diseases that society over there on the eastern hemisphere had culminated, or they would just kind of wander around and just amalgamate into that society over there in Europe. A lot of times, though, after the majority of the taking of the land here in America, a lot of these Indians were taken and sold into slavery. Now, the thing about the Native American Indians is that, according to Esau, they made bad slaves. They did not reproduce in captivity, and they wouldn't do any work. They would rather die and be basically put to death than work or be cooperative. So what ended up happening? Well, like the Lord said, right? The nation that the Lord would bring against us Israelites would not regard the old and the young. And what they did to the young is that they took them and they basically tried to erase the Indian from them and try to assimilate them into Esau's westernized culture. It tells you here, it says, before and after photo of a young Cree boy forced to attend Canadian Indian school in 1910. It says, a great general has said that the only good Indian is a dead one. In a sense, I agree with the sentiment. All the Indian there is in the race should be dead. Kill the Indian in him and save the man. Richard Pratt. And this right here was the sentiment of these Edomites. They basically wanted to erase the ways and the cultures of the Native American Indians, the Gadites, right? And why is that? Well, because you see, they didn't conform to Esau's ways of ravaging the land and ownership and all those things. We all know the story of what happened, right? But the thing is that Esau, he really wanted to wipe out the Native American Indians, right? Because he couldn't enslave them, so he basically tried to indoctrinate them. And this is why when you hear about the Trail of Tears, which, let's bring up the Bible timeline. When you get into the time of the Trail of Tears, it basically took place. So again, America is created, right? 1776. You have a big attack against the Bible when they created the ERV and the ASV Bibles. You had one of the first Hebrew Israelites to awaken and understand that he was an Israelite, right? That being Gregory Prosper came on the scene, and he would start to kind of spread this truth a bit. Then you have the French Revolution, which was basically started by Amalek there in France. And then this is where Mormonism was created, because the Mormons, which we're going to get to in just a little bit, they would constantly communicate with these Indians in trading and basically just, work along with them. And in working with them, these Mormons, namely Joseph Smith, found out about our history. They found out about, who we were. And they then, what did they do? They took the story, they modified it, and they created the Mormon Bible, right? See, the Book of Mormon is basically a collection of historic events that happened to the Northern Kingdom while we were over here. Now, Joseph Smith has added a lot of old world Hebrew customs and ideas into it to make it seem more of an older book, or a book as they call it, a latter testament, but it's not. Okay, a lot of the biblical references in this book are completely off. They contradict the Bible, and they don't match up, right? But the history recorded in the Book of Mormon sheds a lot of light upon the Latino and the Native Americans' history while we were over here in the early 600 to about the 1000 AD period. Now we're up to this point here, 1831 to 1850. You had the Trail of Tears take place. Now what happened here is ultimately these devils, namely Andrew Jackson and a lot of these other high-ranking Edomite politicians, decided that the Native Americans were just too much trouble in the states that they were in. And they pretty much decided to uproot all of them and send them to the west, basically New Mexico, Arizona, and those areas, basically in areas which are not, at this time, were not considered good land, right? These are, bad land, but it kind of turned around for Gad, because these lands, a lot of them had oil upon it. But, eventually these devils, these Edomites, try to steal that from them too. But the point being that I wanted to get is that during the Trail of Tears, were many testimonies that a lot of children started off on the trail, but by the time that they had gotten to the reservations, the children and the women were missing. Well, what happened to them? A lot of them died and perished, right? But many of them ended up in Canada. They were shipped up there, and they were re-educated to westernized society. You can see here all these Gadite kids and women that had basically been re-educated into a Western mindset. And this here, like I said, is ultimately prophecy playing out, how the Lord will bring these nations against us, right? That nation being the Edomites. Okay, that's why it mentioned that he would bring a nation against us as swift as the eagle flieth. And again, when you look at the animal which these Edomites tend to symbolize themselves with, it's the eagle, the bald eagle, the German falcon eagle, right? You had all these Edomites all the way back to the time of Rome, and even before that, the time of Greece. They always would represent themselves as the eagle, right? And that's because that's their spirit. Well, ultimately, all this destruction that came upon the Native American Indians ultimately caused them to lose a lot of their heritage, right? A lot of their folklore, a lot of their elders' wisdom that was passed down from time of old when they had came over here. And this here leads us to another prophecy that would come upon us, which you can read about in Jeremiah 17:4. And thou, even thyself, shalt discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in the land which thou knowest not. For ye have kindled the fire in mine anger, which shall burn forever. Now, that right there is, for the most part, talking about what happened to all the Israelites, right? The Negro, Latino, and Native Americans. We ended up across on the other side of the earth, here on the Western Hemisphere, right, at different times throughout history, but we ultimately ended serving our enemies in a far-off land which we had not known about when this prophecy was made. Now, this here, like I said, was prophesied that we would lose our heritage. We would forget who we were. And this is why you have a lot of Native American Indians, especially Native American Indians, who are amalgamated into the American culture. Okay, it was very hard to find Native American Indians waving the Native American flag, known as the American Indian Movement flag, right? That's the well, you've seen it in the thumbnail, right? It's very hard to find images like that. Most Indians are being shown waving an American flag, which is not their flag. It's their enemy's flag. But the thing is that the brainwashing and the cultural erasure was very done very deeply upon the tribe of Gad. Okay, and we can see that today, right, by the way that they cling on to the American culture. Now, though we did lose our heritage, the great news is that a lot of our history was saved in the rocks that this information was carved into, and also in the artifacts that we had, here. Right here's a image of the Las Lunas, commandment stone, right, which shows the name Yahweh, which is the true Hebrew name of God. In Paleo Hebrew, you see it here, you see it down here as well. Here it is here too, right? Because this is the Ten Commandments stone, right? We had one of the beloved elders, Kazak, go out along with another brother and did a lesson at this rock, and just to show that this is the oldest 10 Commandments in the world, and it was found here in America, there in New Mexico, right? And besides that, you have this, right? You have the Chief Joseph's tablet, which is basically, it says it's an Assyrian tablet. It's a sales receipt and list of sacrificial animals. It says in 1877, Chief Joseph, leader of Nez Perce native Indian tribes, revealed his ancient artifact to General Nelson A. Miles. It was appended, a 1-inch square clay tablet with Assyrian writing. Chief Joseph said the tablet had been passed down in his family for many generations. Right? So check that out. So Chief Joseph had gotten this from his ancestors, right? An Assyrian tablet. Now, besides that, when you look at Chief Joseph's medicine bag, he said that this is his sacred medicine bag, and this medicine bag bears the Assyrian star. Right? Here's an Assyrian flag as a reference. That's basically what's on here. Why would he have that? Well, when you go into the Bible, right, one of the 14 books that these devils, these Protestant devils took out of the Bible, which you can still find in the King James Version 1611 Bible, which was the first published version of the King James Version Bible. You could read here in 2nd Ezra about how the 10 tribes came over here to the Americas. Right? This is 2nd Ezra 13 and 40. It says, those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Yashayah the king, who Salamansar, the king of Assyria, led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land. Right? And that's talking about when he took us out from the northern kingdom of Israel into Assyria, where we basically lived for close to about 100 years, until the Babylonians came and conquered the Assyria, where we were for the most part free. Now, after we were free, some of us went back to Israel, some of us scattered throughout the world, but we really couldn't go back to northern Israel because the Assyrians had settled foreigners in that land, foreigners that came from Persia, known as the Kuthites. They were now dwelling in our land. So a lot of us, what did we do? Well, let's read. But they took this counsel amongst themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt, that they might there keep their statutes, which they never kept in their own land. And they entered into the Euphrates by the narrow places of the river. For the Most High then showed signs for them, and held still the flood, till they were passed over. For through that country there was a great way to go, namely 1.5 years, and the same region is called Azareth. Then dwelt they there until the latter time, and now when they shall begin to come. So this right here basically, it documents the journey that the northern kingdom had, going down the Euphrates and basically going over the waters, and where the Lord stilled these waters, right? The Atlantic Ocean down in this area here is referred to as Hurricane Alley, and the waves there are very tumultuous, right? This is why you always see hurricanes coming out from down over here, right, hitting America and whatnot. Well, the Lord stilled these waters, and this also is corroborated with like the Aztec folklore of the lost city of Aztlan, right? They say that Aslan is over the sea where the sun rises. That would be over here in the east. And they say that it bordered Babylonia. Babylonia is basically where Assyria is at, okay? So the thing is that our people, this is the way they came over here to Azareth. And Azareth, when you get into that word, it basically means another land. And many biblical scholars confirm that Azareth is the Americas, okay? So not only is the Bible corroborating this, right? But again, you have a lot of historic accounts that do as well. When you look at the Indian alphabet, right? This is the old Negev language from the tribes there in Colorado. When you go into their, let's look at it, right? This here is the Indian alphabet, right? And it's for their Q. In Assyrian, it would be shaped like this. In Paleo-Hebrew, which we would have known about, it's shaped like this. So pretty much the same. You have many similarities in this, right? Right. So let's see. The Ka is similar. Tha is similar. The Sha is similar. Wa, that's a bit off, you know. And then Ba, somewhat similar. The Ga over here, Da. Look at these. So for the most part, the same damn letter. Look at this right here, man. The Ra is, that's not the same, but let's see. The Na, see, you have a little shape. And remember, we were over here basically 2,500 years before we were found by the Europeans. So in all that time, and with all the wars that took place between us over here, because again, the Native American Indians and Latinos, we basically devolved into a Lord of the Flies type of a situation where we were basically killing each other off and destroying each other. And along with destroying each other and each other's cities, a lot of information was lost. Okay, this is why by the time the Europeans found us, we were basically, sacrificing each other, and we couldn't get our agriculture to keep going, right? We were going through a large famine. Our crops were failing, right? And this is because, again, it had been so long and we ultimately lost a lot of our information. But again, a lot of the testimonies from when we first were discovered remained, and they were stored in books like this, the Book of Mormon, right? Again, remember, just the Book of Mormon is just has historic accounts of the Latinos and Native Americans while they were over here from 600 BC until about it's about around 1100 AD, right? And then those stories were then embellished upon and added to. Joseph Smith added a lot of biblical references and storylines of things that took place there and back in the Middle East, which contradict the Bible. So again, a lot of the ancient biblical references that is found in the Book of Mormon, those are a bunch of lies. But a lot of the historic events of the Native American and Latinos that took place in the Book of Mormon, you could take it for a grain of salt. Because again, remember, Joseph Smith, being a hunter and a fur trader, I think he was, he had a lot of interactions with these Native American Indians, and a lot of them basically would talk to Joseph and let him know who they were. And a lot of that information was found and ultimately archived in books like this, the 10 Tribes of Israel. So check this out. We're just going to read this real quick page to explain with this man, James Adair, how he observed us the Native American Indians and how they would perform their rituals. And let's just read this and you'll see. It says, from Mr. Adair, the following account or rather, the abstract of the account of the feast and fast of what they may call their Passover or Feast of First Fruits is made on the day appointed, which was amongst the Jews generally in the spring, answering to our March and April, when their barley was for being the first month of the ecclesiastical and seventh of their of this in while sanctified new fruits are dressed. 6 old beloved women came to their temple, or sacred wigwams of worship, and danced the beloved dance with joyful hearts. They observe a solemn procession as they enter the holy ground, or beloved square, carrying in one hand a bundle of the something branches of various green trees. And that right there is the what is it? That's the Feast of Tabernacles, right? Where you're supposed to gather those palm branches, right? And it says, when they are joined by the same blank of beloved old men who carry a cane in one hand adorned with the blank feathers, having green bows in the other hands. Their heads are dressed with white plumes, and the women in their finest clothes and anointed dear grease or oil have also small tortoise shells and white pebbles fastened to a piece of white dressed deerskin, which is tied to each of their legs. The eldest of the beloved men led the sacred dance at the behest of the innermost row, which of course is next to the holy fire. He begins to dance after once going round the holy fire in solemn and religious silence. He then in the next circle invokes Yah after the usual manner on a bass key with a short accent. In another circle he sings Ho Ho, and is repeated by all the religious procession till they finish that circle. Then in another round they repeat He in like manner in regular notes and keep time in the dance. Another circle is continued in like manner while repeating the word Wah Wah, he making in the whole the divine name, holy name, Yahuwah, right? And that's Yahweh. Check that out. That's Yahweh right there, right? A little after this is finished, which then considerable time, they begin it again, going fresh rounds, singing Hallelujah, Yah, in like manner, and frequently the whole music strikes up Hallelujah, 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 with great immeasurable fervor and joy, and while each strikes the ground with the right and left stick alternatively, very quick but well timed, then a kind of hollow sound drum joins the sacred chore, which excites the old female singers to join forth their graceful hymn and praise divine spirit, to redouble the quick joyful steps in imitation of the leader of the beloved men at the head. This appears very similar to the Hebrews. And again, if you want to read this book, it basically just goes through a lot of similarities that the Indians had to the recorded rituals found in the Bible, right? And so it's obvious that the Native American Indians are the Hebrew Israelites, and we here are telling you that through prophecy we could tell that they are the tribe of Gad. Okay, this is Revelations 12 and 16. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth. Right? And this is talking about just how all these things, all these archaeological records, all these things are coming out and helping to basically distinguish the Native American Indians and also the Latinos as the Hebrew Israelites. Right? There's proof in archaeological evidence that we are the Hebrew Israelites, right? And that's swallowing up the flood of lies that these Edomite devils have put out in their stories, right? Their version of history, that we were just savages and we're basically lost. This is Deuteronomy 33 and 20. And of Gad he said, Blessed be he that enlargeth Gad. He dwelleth as a lion, and teareth the arm with the crown of the head. And that's these Native American Indians, man. They sit proud, right, like lions, right, on their reservations with sitting over the oil fields that they do have. For the ones that do, are on oil. There's a great movie. It's sad as shit, but it's called The Killing of the Moonflower or something like that. And it's Leonardo DiCaprio's movie showing how these Edomites took advantage of these Native American Indians that had all these oil rights and basically stole that, the rights to the land from them. But the point being is that these Gadites, right, they use a lot of their historic, reverence and their prominence of the land being holy to them as a way to tear these Edomites' ability to dig up the land to right now. In fact, I'm actually watching a documentary on the side about how these Native American Indians are trying to stop a copper mine from being built over there in Arizona, right? But these Edomites, like always, have done some devastating, wickedly and corrupt treaties, and they, for the most part, have stolen that land and are now polluting that land. But again, it's a constant going back and forth between Gad and these Edomites. But these Edomites are getting their arms torn out, right? Their ability to work their craft is being stopped because these Native American Indians are using, the laws and the protests to stop these devils from doing a lot of the shit they want to do, right? But again, we ultimately know through prophecy that the nation of Gad that was overtaken by a troop will eventually overcome at the last. Because why? Well, because they're Israelites, which means this world is made for them, right? The Negro Latino Native Americans are going to inherit this world, and we are going to take it back, and we're going to run it righteously. This is Daniel 12 and 1. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. And it is the Negro, Latino, Native Americans that are written in the Bible, okay? Salvation is for us, and salvation basically means to be saved from the coming destructions and ultimately to be given a place of leadership in the next iteration of human society when the Lord resets the world again. Now, that being said, 2/3 of our people, that's 2 out of every 3 Negro, Latino, Native Americans, and anybody whose father's lineage goes back to that bloodline, they're ultimately not going to make it this go around. They're going to have to die here on this side because they were too polluted or too defiled by this Babylonian world system that they've set up, right? They've either taken them, they're going to either be part of the system of just being lost here and being Americanized, Babylonianized, or they would have taken the mark of the beast, right? Or they would have worshipped the image of the beast, and those Israelites just aren't going to make it. But for the rest, the 1/3 of our people, right, that's 12,000 out of every one of the 12 tribes are going to make 144,000 plus the 1 out of every 3 Negro, Latino, Native Americans are going to make it. And we are going to be, taken up into those ships. And we are going to ultimately see the destruction of America and the westernized powers, right? The beast system. And we're going to see the resetting of the world. In fact, we're going to be helping to make that happen. So, hopefully this video was edifying. Until the next time, I want to give all honor, glory, and praises to Yahweh, Ba'Shem Yashayah, Ba'Shem Rekav Kodash. Shalom.